Welcome to the Long Strange Trip. I'm Josh, the host of the show. We're going to dig into 6 areas together, finding real work-life integration instead of that brutal 95-5 split too many business owners live with. We're going to approach retirement as an actual reinvention rather than just stopping work. And we're facing death honestly and avoiding PTSD around it. We're also building resilience when life throws us curveballs. We're sharing wisdom across generations. And finally, we're understanding the patterns that show up in all our transitions. I'm not coming at this as an expert. I'm a fellow traveler, figuring this stuff out in real time, especially now as I navigate my own dual cancer diagnosis at 73. Welcome to the Long Strange Trip. I'm glad you're here. Hey, how are you today? This is Josh Patrick, and you're at the Long Strange Trip podcast. And my guest today is an old friend of mine, Michele Asch. I knew Michele when she was just a young pup. Started on her career, and over the years, we've run across ourselves many times. And when we were doing our pre-interview for the podcast, Michele told me a whole bunch of stuff that just had me fascinated with the life that she lives and the belief systems she has. So I could yammer on for another 3 or 4 minutes, but I think I'll stop and we'll bring Michele on. Hey, Michele, how are you today?
Good. How are you, Josh? Nice to see you.
It's great seeing you as always. I've always enjoyed our conversations among the years. The last one we had might have been the most interesting of all. So in the last conversation, we were talking about guided journeys and using hallucinogenics to help us learn more about ourselves. So could you take us into that world a little bit?
Sure. Like I think many people, I was curious and thought, I'm going to give this a try. So I did have a guided journey with psilocybin, and it was a weekend retreat. I went with a friend, and it was fantastic. There were about 12 of us. The guide was very experienced, so we spent some time prepping for it. We had a meal together. We shared a circle. Everyone shared what they were hoping to get out of it. And then the next day, we gathered in this really cool, large teepee in a circle, feet all toward the center. And I now understand there's certain music that you can play to help you with your guided spiritual journey. And there were 3 doses of psilocybin, and they were distributed, during the time that we were doing this sort of journey. And I took all 3, and it was a trip. I went into this journey really with one question. I wanted to know what I needed to know. I was like, teach me, what do I need to know? So I was really asking the mushroom, what do I need to know? And so I went in very open-ended, and everybody there had different things they were hoping to get out of it, but that was mine. And it was super interesting. And I think probably the biggest takeaway for me, there's lots of things I could share, but the biggest takeaway is I became the mushroom during this spiritual journey. My lesson was, I am the mushroom, the source, the ultimate source of creativity, of oneness. And I literally in my journey became the mushroom, and threw me through the ground into all the other folks were the mycelium connecting us all. So there was this real feeling of oneness and connectedness, and the mycelium was just shooting out of me. And I had this overwhelming sense of just connectedness and oneness and love. And I have not since then had a desire to do it, because my big my learning was, I don't need to do that. I am the mushroom. That was my journey.
It's a pretty interesting journey. So what does that practically mean, if anything?
Think practically speaking, in day to day, it really means having more context. So when there's a big decision to be made, or stuff's happening in the world that's really upsetting, just having a broader context that our life on this planet is short and we're all connected and we're all part of this, however the evolution happens and time happens, circular, linear, both, that for me, it's just helped me to keep things into perspective and not get sucked down in these tiny rabbit holes of despair, just to understand that this is the journey.
So, do you believe that there's a connection between people who are alive now and people who were alive who are now dead?
100%.
Okay, so let's go
Yes.
there for a little while because I think there's a nice little segue into what the hypnotherapist world says, life between lives.
Yeah.
So, can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. And I'll start a little bit. I'm a little bit metaphysical. Time, I don't see time as linear. Time has all sorts of fourth dimensions. So having said that, I've always been interested in exploring, what are some ways that I can tap into the in-between world, the folks that have been before us, have passed on. And growing up, my family has always been really interested in going to psychics. So I didn't grow up with that being weird. I grew up with that being very normal. And so I can't even tell you how many psychics and mediums I've been to in my life. I have no idea. It's just too many. But I had a very direct experience with my dad that I'd love to share if you
Please.
think that's interesting. My dad passed away 3 years ago.
Mhm.
And something I didn't share with you, Josh, but I will now, is he died on January 27th. I didn't know that was an important date to my mom until my dad became really sick with pancreatic cancer, and we didn't know how much time he had left. And my mom said, I hope he doesn't die on January 27th. And what are the odds, right? Like there was like this months that he could have died. And I said, Mom, why not? And she said, well, my dad died on January 27th. And that is a really sad day for me. My mom's dad died when she was 15. So I said, well, what are the odds that happens, Mom? And, maybe if it does, it was meant to be. Your dad is helping my dad transition. Well, sure enough, he died on January 27th, even though the doctor said he had much longer to live. But so my dad was sick with pancreatic cancer, stage 4. And I was supposed to go on a trip with my husband and friends to Belize. He had weeks to month left. And so I decided to go and then go back to Florida where my dad was. Well, while I was there, my husband and I were paddling on a river without a cell phone, no connection. And all of a sudden, Josh, everything went like technicolor, like still, I got goosebumps all over my body. And I turned to Pete and I said, I think my dad just died. And we didn't have any way to call anybody. But then when we got back to this little eco lodge we were staying, I just ran to our room. And as I picked up my phone that was face down, I picked it up and my sister was calling at that moment. So I swiped it. And of course, she told me that my dad had passed. And when I was visiting my dad before he passed, I said, Dad, what are you going to come back and visit us as? He said, I'm coming back as a crow. I was like, a crow? Like maybe an eagle or a hummingbird, but a crow. And the reason was when he was 13, he had a wild crow that befriended him and used to sit on his shoulder and pull at his little bomber jacket and ride on his handlebars and wouldn't go to any other kids. So that was a crow. Well, in the eco lodge, the entire time we were there after he died, we had a crow that kept pulling apart our screen, completely shredded the screen. And I knew it was my dad. I'm like, Dad, what are you doing? So that's one experience.
What do you think the message he was trying to send you when he was being a crow and tearing your screen apart?
I think it was just, I'm here. I told you I'd come back as a crow. I don't think there was a deeper message.
Yeah.
Um, and I think the essence was that he was there with me because, of course, I felt incredibly guilty. I would not have left if I thought that he was going to die while I was gone. I wanted to be there. But it was clear that he was there. And one of the things my dad wanted us to do, it's my mom and there's 3 kids. Before he died, he said, I want to be cremated and I want you to spread my ashes between 4 wooden boxes. And he was very specific. So we did. I had my wooden box. We all have our wooden box. And I went to a medium who knew nothing of this. And she said to me, your dad's here and he's got a message for you that stop talking to the box. He's not in the box. And I start laughing. I'm like, this was his idea to go into the box. She said to me, well, what we know when we're alive and what we know when we've transitioned, we crossed over 2 different things. But he's telling you, you can think of him, you can talk to him, he's with you all the time. He's not in the box.
It's a nice thought.
Yes,
I like that a lot. So do you think your dad had a good death?
me?
Yeah, you. Do you think your dad had a good death?
I do. I do, mostly because he was really not afraid to die. He would have chosen to stay alive if he could have, but he didn't. He was not afraid to die.
Is that your definition of what a good death is?
I think that's part of it, not having fear and anxiety, that having a sense of peace about it. Yeah. I mean, that's what I would imagine a good death is.
Do you actually think about that yourself at all?
All the time. All the time. I've actually experimented, Josh, just recently for about a month. The first thing that I would say to myself is today's a good day to die. And just experimented with what that felt like and did. And and I also coupled with going to bed at night saying, thank you, today was a great day to be alive. So paired the 2. And there's just, what I felt was just a deep sense of joy and gratitude for the day and for life. And again, for me, it's all about gaining perspective.
You've seen a ton of mediums in your life.
Yes.
What have you learned?
I have learned that it is definitely so on a practical level, just like we all have skills and talents in different things. Not all mediums are equally as talented and as skilled. So it definitely is a skill, and not all, I mean, they're humans, right? So not all of them share the same maybe moral compass on what they should say or shouldn't say. So it's really important to try to find someone that you trust to make recommendations for mediums. But I've also learned that there's a mystery. There is definitely a mystery to energetic healing. Folks knowing, seeing maybe time not linear. I mean, I've had people share with me something that was going to happen in the future that was spot on, and spoken to different folks that have passed on. I mean, I had a medium that my dad was visiting, and every single medium that I have spoken to about my dad passing has the same message from my dad, which is, you don't have to work as hard as you're working. You think you do, you've done enough. That's been the message. And then after
I agree with that.
Pete and I had our beloved dog, Riley, died. And after he died, I saw a medium and she said, it was a male. He said, your dad is petting a dog, but I can't tell if the dog is a golden retriever or a cocker spaniel. And my dog was a blend of both those dogs.
Right.
He was a Cocker Spaniel Golden Retriever. And I said, well, I know who that is. That's Riley. He just passed away. He's like, well, your dad is with, and my dad loved that dog.
I love that dog too. That was a great dog. It was a
Dog.
great dog. But be that as it's me, is that, dog energy is something I find really fascinating. And I'm actually more interested in meeting my dogs when I die than I am other humans. And I'm not sure why that's true, but I tend to have a better relationship with dogs than humans. But maybe that's just because I'm a very strange person.
Then I am sure you were going to meet your dogs, Josh. That's
I'm pretty sure I will too.
awesome.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to dying. But when I die, there's a lot of things I'm curious about, which I'm hoping I'll get some answers to. And,
Mhm.
what I've read is that in the life between lives, which I actually like that term a lot, there's kind of this liminal space. And there's guides. And those guides are teachers. And I'm wondering what I need to learn that I haven't learned in this life. And I'm wondering if I've learned enough and won't reincarnate, which happens, from what I understand, to some people, or I will reincarnate with lessons I still need to learn. You have any thoughts about that?
Well, it's interesting. I don't know if you've read Brian Weiss's Many Lives, Many Masters.
I have.
Yeah. The interesting thing that you said about that you said there, again, it's about context, because I do think we come down to learn lessons. And for me, feel like a deep knowing of that. And I have to constantly remind myself, right? Because we're humans living in this human life that sometimes we just lose perspective. It's that the things that happen that are really, really hard, or the things we struggle with, when we look at them through the lens of there's lessons I need to learn, I feel like for me, I just approach them differently. There's an opportunity to say, okay, this pattern is repeating itself in my life. There's got to be something I need to learn. So rather than fighting it, or rather than thinking, why me? It's like, there's a lesson. And where it's easier to apply to myself than it is my kids, right? Because we always want to help our kids and save our kids. Well, they come with lessons they need to learn too. And again, it's I think when we allow ourselves to be curious and expand, we can live, I feel, a more joyful and fulfilled life in so many ways, without getting too attached to ideas or things or outcomes, right? We don't know what the outcome's going to be.
I like the question. This is my favorite question I was talking with a friend of mine about yesterday, actually, is what would happen if? And I believe we need to be asking what would happen if about almost everything that's in our life.
Mm.
The long strange trip has been a really interesting project for me because in my prior life, I was very definite about almost everything.
I know.
Yes, well, you've known me for a long time. And since I've retired, I'm definite about almost nothing, which I'm finding is a way more interesting place to be.
I love that. I love that, Josh. And I have to tell you, because of your curiosity, I have never been asked these questions, right? I mean, I have this professional life, and you're asking me, and I'm talking about things that I never imagined talking about on a podcast. So thank you for that gift.
Well, I'm more than happy to provide it. The interesting thing about one of the reasons I podcast is I get to talk about I talk with interesting people about interesting things, which is actually my personal mission in life. And it has been for a really long time. And there's all these people showing up who are teaching me things I've never really had a conversation about mediums. I'm not sure I believe in mediums, but I'm not sure I don't either. Sort of like, what would happen if I did believe it? What happened if I don't believe it? What happened if maybe, as you're talking about, and I think is true for almost every person that does a professional thing, there's a very small group who are really good at what they do. There's a bigger group that's mediocre at what they do. And the biggest group is incompetent. And the challenge is they all talk a good game.
Yep.
So how do you, when you're choosing a medium, how do you choose somebody who's going to help you?
A lot of times it's word of mouth, or I'll go on and read about somebody. And and I'm okay if it's not the best experience. I'm okay. I look for threads of consistency through some of the messaging. Yeah, I guess I'm just Josh, not attached to the outcome of what that experience is going to be. Like, let's just see. And over the years, some have been like just the way you characterized, really competent, really talented, and others are, I have to say, there's only been a couple that I thought, nah, they're a hoax. Wouldn't go, or they're just inexperienced. They may have something there, but I mean, my sister has an innate, I would say, talent, but she's freaked out by it, and so she does not want to work with someone to explore what she could develop. And I say, I wish it was me. She's like, no, you don't. It's freaky.
Maybe freaky, but it's probably interesting.
Yeah.
Would be my guess. Sometimes if we put ourselves into an uncomfortable space, that's where real value comes.
Yeah.
I found that back in my early 30s when I did some New Age seminars. And back there, putting me in a New Age seminar was really putting me in an uncomfortable space. I was taught to be linear the way I grew up. And being in a New Age seminar, you are definitely not in a linear space. You are in a space where there's stuff going on and you just can't explain it.
Right.
But the truth is, I've had a couple of experiences in those New Age seminar, which have been earth-shaking, I would say, for myself.
Wow.
And unfortunately, Suzanne had the opposite experience.
Really?
Yeah. So I've continued to kind of go down that path. And she has no interest because of her unhappy experience when she did. And then there were some good reasons they were unhappy. There were some leaders who were unethical. And that always, there's a lot of that in the New Age world, unfortunately.
Yep, because ego, we still have, and whether it's you become suddenly a spiritual leader, the ego takes over, which is why I tend to like some of my favorite folks I love to read include the Dalai Lama. I still read Thich Nhat Hanh. I mean, he passed away, but I mean, those are just folks that they didn't fall into that category, right?
No.
They didn't have the seduction of fame that kind of,
I kind of like Eckhart Tolle a lot in that world also, just because.
Yeah, I've read all of his books.
Just because I think too often we live in the past, we live in the future, we forget about living in the present where life really happens.
Right. That's
At least
right.
that's been what I've learned.
Yep.
And it's not something that I've learned a long time ago. I actually learned it, probably in the last 5-6 years. A lot of my learning's been the last 5 or 6 years because I've stopped trying to control everything.
It's amazing how that happens. And I think, Josh, I don't know about you, but I need constant reminders. I mean, for me, my daily reading is the Tao Te Ching, Thich Nhat Hanh. I actually have just started getting into David White's poetry over the past few months.
No.
for me, I need that grounding as a reminder. It's like a constant. And the Tao Te Ching, I've read, I don't know how many times, front to back, just a passage a day. And then I go back to the beginning again. Just,
Yeah. I read a lot of Ryan Holiday's stuff on the Stoics.
the stoicism. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's actually where I kind of started this trip, is I ran across a Ryan Holiday book. And as you know, I read way too much. And I found it really interesting, and it sort of is a good roadmap, at least for me, in how to live my life.
I think it also, I have found it resonates a lot with men.
Yep.
I mean, I have the Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday, but
Mhm.
I've also given it to my adult sons and they really like it. It's,
The good thing with the Daily Stoic, if you have the discipline to do it, which I don't, I do it occasionally, is that you read the today's passage and then write about it.
yeah. I
And
have not done that, but that's a good idea.
What I'm thinking about is actually talking about it into a journal. I have found, and we're going to probably have to end here, but I have found that speaking instead of typing with a computer, you get much, much, much deeper and much better information.
Interesting.
Yes. I'm reading a book now called How Not to Use AI. And that was one for suggestions. So when you're having a conversation with Chad or Claude or whoever you want to talk with, do it vocally. Walk around and talk as if you would. And you get much different and much deeper information.
So the AI then summarizes it, puts it
No,
into
the
a,
AI gets to a conversation. Well, I would say, here's what I'm thinking. What would you recommend I do next? And I do that for several thousand words. And then I take that information and then I start using AI as, giving the normal prompts that people normally do, but they're much deeper and much better prompts. So it's an interesting thing. But at any rate, unfortunately, we are out of time. We could probably wander on for a couple hours about this.
100%. I've so enjoyed this, Josh. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. So, Michelle, if somebody wants to contact you, would that be okay?
Absolutely.
And
Would love it.
How would they go about doing that?
Probably the best way is my personal email, which is Asch, ASCH .Michele with one L, MICHELE @gmail.com.
And I've got two things I'd like you to do. Or actually,
Okay.
one thing I would like you to do and one thing you might want to do. The thing I would like you to do is give me an honest rating and review about this podcast. If you love it, give me 5 stars. If you hate it, give me 1 star. And I will cry a little bit, I promise you, but not much. And the second thing is actually quite easy. If you've enjoyed this podcast, this episode, or any of the episodes we do, and you think you would be a good guest for the show, send me an email. Let's have a conversation and see if this will be a good thing for you to do. And the easiest way to find me, again, is through my email, jpatrick@stage2solution.com. That's the number 2 and solution is singular. jpatrick@stage2solution.com. And we'll have a conversation and we'll see where it goes. That's how Michelle and I started, and it's always been fun for me. So this is Josh Patrick. You're with Michele Asch. You're at the Long Strange Trip podcast. Thanks a lot for stopping by. I hope to see you back here next week. Thanks for spending this time with me today. I really appreciate you being part of this journey. I'd be grateful if you'd leave an honest rating and review. It helps other people find these conversations, lets me know what's landing with you and what isn't. If you love the show, give us 5 stars. And if you hate it, give it 1 star and I'll just cry a little bit. Keep asking the hard questions. Keep being honest about what's difficult. And remember, we're all just trying to figure this out together. I'll talk to you next time on the Long Strange Trip. Thanks for stopping by.